Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm here with an astrology oracle reading for you for the week of September 12th. As always, I have created an event chart for this, which is like a birth chart for a time. This can be used for like an event, like a reading. It can be also used for like the signing of a contract, the founding of a country. There's so many things that you can use an event chart for. I always create one to reference in these videos, just to kind of give us some parameters on time and where to focus this week. So based on 11:11 a.m. here in Dayton, Ohio, we have a Virgo sun at 19 degrees, we have an Aries moon at 18 degrees, and we have Scorpio rising at 5 degrees. So I myself am a Scorpio rising, so I'm here for seeing this chart because it actually is set up very similarly to how you may see your own chart depending on what degree you're at if you are also a Scorpio rising. Now, me personally, I'm Scorpio rising at 29 degrees, which is an anaretic degree if you've read my degree theory blog post before. But this is a 5th degree Scorpio rising, so it is much earlier in the sign, which means that Scorpio is ruling the 1st house in this chart, whereas like in my birth chart, it rules the 12th house. I do also use Placidus house system, not whole sign houses. That will change the interpretations if you happen to look up another house system. So there's a lot going on in this chart. As always, like, are we surprised? We have an opposition between Mercury and Jupiter. We have a very interesting kite shape of this chart. So we have a trine between the Sun and Pluto, as well as the Sun and Uranus, and then Pluto and Uranus. So these are not exact trines. If they were, we would actually have a grand trine, but we do not have that set up here. But it is still very powerful energy between the Sun, Pluto, and Uranus. I mean, that is really quite a dynamic lineup to be involved in this position. But with the kite, we also have a couple other things going on. So yes, we do have those trines between the Sun, Pluto, and Uranus, but we're also seeing, I believe, let's see, a sextile, indeed. We have a sextile between Uranus and Neptune, and we also have a sextile between Pluto and Neptune. So this is really creating a very dynamic energy here, and because of the way that this chart is set up, with Scorpio ruling the 1st house, a lot of that concentrated energy is taking place around the 4th and 6th houses of this chart, which would be roots, family, home, creativity, passion, as well as like your mundane daily routines. As I mentioned, we have that energy between Mercury and Jupiter playing out. We are in Mercury Retrograde right now. And it also is, really crossing over another opposition between the Sun and Neptune. So the fact that the Sun is in Virgo and Neptune is in Pisces is a very obvious opposition. Now, they are not exact, again, just because the Sun is at 19 degrees, Neptune is actually at 24 degrees. So whenever we have an aspect that is exact, we have them at the exact same degree. And I am not sure that we do have the Sun is at 19, Saturn is at 19, but they are not really necessarily forming one of those big aspects that I tend to talk about. I haven't quite gotten into some of what they call the minor aspects or like the lesser aspects. No offense to those, just, that's kind of the terms that are used around them often. But yeah, again, creating a really dynamic energy here. And then, soon enough, whenever Venus gets closer and closer to the Sun, we will also kind of see a very extended conjunction happening between the two of them. Although I do think that the Sun will ingress into Libra before Venus has a chance to fully catch up with it. All right, let's see. Anything else worth mentioning? We do have a trine between Mars and Gemini and Saturn and Aquarius. And, that's kind of an interesting energy there. First of all, Saturn in Aquarius is, it's what we've been going through for the last 2 years. It's a complete disruption to our systems. It's, really asking us to like kind of grow in our maturity towards humanitarianism and taking care of others and setting up systems that actually work for us, that are like built for the long haul. And then, Mars and Gemini. Kind of all over the place energy, very chaotic, but I think it can be chaotic good or chaotic, you know, in a way that it's stirring something up in us. And of course, as I've mentioned in the past, we are heading towards a Mars retrograde towards the end of this year, which means that Mars is going to be sitting in Gemini for a long time, till March of next year. So if you're unfamiliar with what Mars Gemini energy is, don't worry, you're going to have plenty of time to figure it out. There's also a trine between Mercury and Mars, because Mars is in Gemini and Mercury is in Libra. And you'll notice that these trines are happening to planets that are in the same elemental energy. And I've also mentioned this, but I'll say it again, because it is really helpful to have these little kind of brain hacks, if you will. So Libra, Gemini, Aquarius, all air signs. So whenever a planet in Libra aspects a planet in Gemini, or whenever, you know, Gemini aspects a planet in Aquarius, you're going to have a trine, which is very harmonious, which makes sense because you're in the same element. Same thing with, you know, the trines that are happening in the earth signs, Virgo and Capricorn and Taurus. It's that harmony between the element, that whatever planet they are, regardless of, you know, like for example, Mercury is not ruled by Libra, it is ruled by Gemini. Pluto is not ruled by, Saturn is not ruled by Aquarius in modern astrology anyway. It's more associated with Uranus, but it's still really interesting to see how the archetypes can kind of bend and shift depending on what elemental energy is really working. And, you know, it's also cool to kind of consider the next layer, which is the modality. So Libra is cardinal, Gemini is mutable, Aquarius is fixed. And so just seeing the interplay between those different energies in a harmonious way is kind of a cool, like, little research project, if you will, into how, you know, the zodiac can be so much more than the definition of like sun sign astrology, which we're all very familiar with. So, okay, enough of my rant. Let's get to the good stuff. Let's get to the reading. So as I mentioned, we are in Mercury retrograde. That kicked off on Friday with the full moon in Pisces. How could I mistake that? Because it was very much a full moon, in my opinion. Very full moon energy. Also, please pardon if I look a little ill or under the weather between the flu, COVID, allergies. I'm not quite sure what I'm dealing with here, but it's making me a little nasally, so I apologize. Okay, so getting my cards spread out here. They're a little sticky today. All right, so this card is calling my name, the water elements, sensing. Kind of cool that I started talking about elements so much and then we have another element pop up. So in the past I have covered air and fire. So here we are now with water. So the water signs are Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio. And they all, again, represent different modalities. So Cancer would be the cardinal water, Pisces would be the mutable water, and Scorpio would be fixed water. So one thing that all water signs have in common is this sensing, which is why this is the mantra for this card. Now, whether that sensing be through some sort of emotional sense or just really understanding like vibes, like it doesn't necessarily have to be like emotional, it could just be like the vibes. You know, there is a sense of just like knowing and having the answers come to you. So if you know anybody who has a water sign or maybe multiple water signs in their big three, their sun, moon, and rising, you may consider them someone who just like figures things out or information kind of comes to them and there's not a very clear method to that madness, so to speak. Whereas like Virgo or Gemini, for example, both being ruled by Mercury, there's a pretty obvious vehicle for the two of them. Gemini talking, Virgo thinking. Now with the water signs though, there is not that mercurial element. It is more of like a feeling, a sensing, quite literally. You know, I wish I had better words to describe this, but sometimes this really does the job. I am a Scorpio rising. I also have a Scorpio stellium, and I definitely feel like I can walk into a room and not only pick up on the vibes and the energy of everybody in there, but I feel like I can sometimes have a sense for like what those individuals are going through. When I really got into my astrological and tarot and spiritual journey in the last few years, I reached a peak point during the pandemic where I actually had a really hard time going out in public, and it wasn't because of masking or social distancing. It was because I would like look at people and I could sense, you know, all of the strife, the pain, the sadness they were going through, and it was really overwhelming. And you know, there's something about boundaries there, right, where I wasn't purposefully trying to cross boundaries with others, or they maybe weren't trying to cross boundaries with me, but there's just a sensing that's happening there, you know, and it's very unique to the water signs to experience that. I think it's very interesting to consider how water can be archetypally different and personified in different ways depending on the other elements that it comes in contact with. Like, for example, when water and earth come together, you know, the water can sort of erode the earth can kind of create new pathways for the water to travel. It's a very interesting relationship that is, you know, in one essence kind of deteriorating, in another essence, you know, shaping a new path. When you combine water and air, you get that really heavy, almost humidity, right? Where it's like there's feeling in the air. There's, you know, maybe tension, maybe not tension, but it's the vibe, right? Like you can really, really feel it. And then when you combine water and water and fire, we've already done water and earth, water and fire, you know, the fire heats up the water, and then when the water is heated, it has the ability to change the form of something, right? So a very simple example to think of is like boiling spaghetti. You know, you go from like a crispy, crunchy, you know, dried out noodle, and a few moments in that boiling hot water, it becomes an entirely different texture, a different eating experience, a different handling experience. You know, everything about it changes. And that's the beauty of water, is that on its own, it's fluid, it's flowing, it loves to travel, it can take form of whatever container that it's put into on its own. But when you combine that water element with another, it almost is an entirely new expression of what water can actually be. Now, I think it's really interesting to consider, you know, what these sort of pairings feel like, right? So let's take Pisces and Virgo, for example, right? Which is speaking to the Neptune, what is that there? Neptune Sun opposition right now. So Virgo, very mercurial earth, and then you have Pisces, which is, you know, very dreamy, loves the illusions. You know, you can almost kind of see how that energy is like super dynamic together. You know what I mean? Like you have the thinking and the logic, but then you also have this creativity and otherworldliness. Another thing I think is very interesting to note is that all of the water signs opposite is an earth sign. So the opposite to Pisces is Virgo, the opposite to Cancer is Capricorn, the opposite to Scorpio is Taurus. And again, I think that there's something really interesting to consider there about the way that these energies work and flow together. What else is there to say about water signs? I mean, so much. These are the emotional, nurturing, transformative, imaginative signs of the zodiac, and really I could probably go on about them because I think that they're some of the most dynamic but also some of the most misunderstood energies. Of course, I have to get out my handy dandy little book here to give us a little more energy around the water element. Also, really cool, I've never mentioned this, but there's corresponding tarot cards mentioned in these books, and the corresponding tarot card for the water element is the Ace of Cups, of course, which happens to be one of my favorite songs to meditate to by LS Dream, if you're interested in checking that out. Water element, sensing. Your intellect may be confused, but your emotions will never lie to you. I love that because I do think that You know, that we've all heard that quote or phrase, however you want to say it, where your thoughts create your world. And that may be true, but your emotions are what color it. Let matters flow. In astrology, the element of water represents emotions and talents of the imagination. Water characterizes the realm of vision and taking us to the quintessential depths of feeling, where intuition is more appropriate than acquired wisdom and knowledge. We get carried away on water. We have feelings of floating or being adrift over water. When looking at the shimmering surfaces of water, we cannot see to the bottom, but we know and sense what is there. Deep things, too obtuse and transitory to explain. Fathoms of moods and insight. Water is the element of Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. The planets of water are Moon, Cancer, Pluto, Scorpio, and Neptune, Pisces. When the water element card presents itself in a spread, you can trust what you feel as the best course to follow. What you're sensing right now may not be based on logic, it's just what you're sensing is correct. Right now, it's best to just go with the flow and trust the movement, although things could be gentle and gradual in how they change. Sometimes the water card can also indicate a need to withdraw and fight another day. It's a good time to gather resources and gather your strength again before you move ahead. At times, it can be trusting or passive of others' shortcomings when you actually shouldn't accept them. You may have the tendency to allow things to pass you by without fighting for them, or to let go of something that's rightfully yours. Water is the element of compassion and understanding, so don't be a doormat. It's possible people or forces could take advantage of this benign and accepting nature within you. It's a good time to write, imagine, play, paint, create, anything that you want that has to do with imagination and creativity. It's the ability to quiet your conscious mind and allow yourself to be taken over by an idea or a dream. And you know what? I'm going to actually end it right there because I don't think I need to say anything else. Again, we are in Mercury Retrograde. It is a time where we almost can't really trust our thoughts. We can't really trust communication to be at peak performance because things are a little muddied. So instead of getting too involved in the processing and intellectual decisions you may need to make right now, as this card is saying, go with what you're feeling, go with what you're sensing, and trust your gut, because as that quote said, it will not steer you wrong. That's all I have for you guys this week. Have an amazing week, and I will see you next time. Bye.